Please be upstanding for Her Worshipful the Mayor and Deputy Mayor.
Good evening, members, and welcome to the first meeting of this year with the new council. There are a few notes to say before we start the meeting. Please note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. Please make sure your phones and devices are on silent. A reminder that members do need to stand when speaking in the chamber. That tonight, of course, will exclude Prue. May I remind everyone that I attend to adhere strictly to the timing set out in the Constitution. It's my pleasure this evening to welcome 27 new members into this chamber, although some of them are returning members. And I'd like to ask them just to stand briefly so that people know who you are. Rohit Atlawat. Thank you, Rohit. Martin Alder. Basit Alvi. Martin Andrea. Mark Ashwell. Joseph Barley. Sarah Bell. Greg Bellow. Adrian Betteridge. Mark Brunel Walker. Rob Cumber. Chris Cook. Melanie de Jong is at the back. She's standing. Thank you, Melanie. Dave Edmonds. George Evans. Alex Freeney. Kay Gilder. Catherine Harper. Moses Yungen Ubana. I'm sorry, Moses, that was the best I could do. Carol Jewell. Naji Nigella. Majid Nagra. Andy Ng. Yasra Salman. Vishal Shirvanisan. Lou Timlin. And lastly, but not of course least, Siona Turtle. Thank you and welcome. I hope you will enjoy your time as a councillor on Wokingham Borough Council and will work for the benefit of all our residents. I'd like now to say just a few words about my time in office. I've only got 15 pages, sit comfortably. Today, I have so many thank yous to say, not only to you, my fellow members, for giving me the opportunity, but to all the residents, other mayors and dignitaries that I have met over the year. You will notice that on the front bench here, there is a young man in, let's say, different dress. When I started as mayor, I had no idea of the role of High Sheriff or Lord Lieutenant. Now, not only have I had the pleasure of working with them, I understand more about the purpose and history of their respective roles. And in a few moments, I'm going to ask Alex, the High Sheriff, to speak. Perhaps more importantly, I have met so many of our impressive residents doing so much voluntary work. I realised that we would not be the borough we are without so many volunteers who do so much good work. From visiting schools, listening to children singing or performing another way, I have learned that our borough, we have excellent schools in all sectors, enabling the pupils to reach a potential that they would not have without excellent encouragement from our really excellent teaching staff. From the comedians at Bowhunt, the singers at Gorse Ride, celebrating the history of Finch Hampstead, to the little boy at Baby Addington, who had no language and who just wanted to stroke my head, and maybe ending with Addington and a whole school production of The Wizard of Oz. And I have to tell you, that is quite an achievement. What a wonderful job our schools do for our children, ending with the final of the school's trial competition organised by Simon Muir, the previous High Sheriff, to the final last Saturday in the Crown Court. The other end of the scale was a 100-year-old lady I visited in Finch Hampstead as she celebrated her birthday with her family. The things I'll take away from being mayor are the moving Christmas carol service at Reading Minster, organised by the Royal Berkshire Hospital charity, to the mayor's carol service with Wasmer at Loddon Vale, a concert at the Anvil with Berkshire Symphony Orchestra and bands, and the recognition of charitable work by the Lord Lieutenant at Windsor Guildhall. What a beautiful building, and what a privilege for me to go there. One of the things that I had not expected was the fellowship offered by other Berkshire mayors. It was a pleasure to get to know them and work with them. The most emotional events were the monthly citizenship ceremonies at Woking Town Hall. The splendour of the room added to the dignity of the ceremony, the emotion that was palpable as our citizens finally achieved what they'd been wanting and working on for some cases years, finally becoming full citizens of our country. I will ever be grateful to you, my colleagues, for giving me the opportunity to experience all this. I'd now like to say a few words of thank you. Firstly, to my consorts, and you'll notice that is an S at the end of consort. Because I'm a widow, I don't have a partner to take with me, and so 3 of my friends have been my consorts: Councillor Carol Jewell, Mrs. Sheila Flower, who many of you will know, and Mrs. Karen Machin, who's sitting on the end here. The 3 of them have done a magnificent job over the year. We've laughed and cried together. I'm pleased that 2 of them are able to be here tonight with me to thank them in person. Mrs. Flower had a better offer. She's gone to Cornwall. And now, last but not at all least, the officers of the council that have led and guided me over the year. As you are all aware, chairing council meetings is not my best asset. Susan, Graham, Andrew and Priya have all held my hand as we go through motions and debates. I have a small reward for all of you, for Caroline, Sandra and Luke at our weekly mayor's meetings as we play the mayoral diary going forward. I've been impressed by your support for my charity this year, the Woodley Food Bank. We have raised several thousand in cash, plus the gifts in kind that we collected here at Shoot End, but also at Mark Anthony Hairdressers in Woodley, and things that went directly to the food bank. In such a rich country as ours, I am ashamed that we have to have food banks to support people who cannot afford the essentials in life. This is nothing to be proud of. Finally, I would like to invite all of you to join me in the Mayor's Parlour for a drink at the end of the meeting. The rest of the meeting will be chaired by Adrian. I'd now like to ask for nominations for the office of... Oh, Stephen, sorry.
Before you proceed to the nominations for your successor, Beth, I really wanted to thank you on behalf, I hope, of the whole council for your excellent service as mayor. You may have doubted your ability to chair these meetings. I think the rest of us didn't doubt it at all. You've chaired them with great firmness, with great fairness, and with not a little wit, which has always been very welcome. But you've also acted as a wonderful ambassador for the council at civic functions. You referred in your speech to one event that I was with you at, which was the horse ride pupils singing the song to commemorate and celebrate the horse ride community as it goes through its regeneration process. It was a very moving event. Wonderful to hear the children sing. But what was particularly impressive was the way in which you interacted with everyone there. I think the children were totally enthralled by you. And I have to say, it's not just because you were wearing your bling. They warmed to you as a personality, and you represented the council very well on that occasion. And I know you have on many, many others. So a very big thank you from all of us to you for your service to the borough.
Thank you, Stephen. You know, I've messed it up again, don't you? You're getting used to it now. But I forgot to ask Alex to say a few words. He's sitting there in his best uniform, having prepared a 25-minute speech. Alex, would you like to say a few words to the council? I think this is your first time at a Wokingham Borough Council meeting.
Correct, it is. And I've just learned about the strict times on the agenda. So I'm going to have to talk very quickly, everybody. So apologies for that. So Your Worship, councillors and guests, I am Alex, and I'm the High Sheriff of the Royal County of Berkshire. So the office of High Sheriff is the oldest secular office in the kingdom after the Crown. In fact, it dates back to Anglo-Saxon times, and I am the 809th High Sheriff of Berkshire. The first High Sheriff of Berkshire, Godric, was killed at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Now, fortunately for me, times have moved on, and I'm no longer expected to lead the charge against the Normans. Nor do I have to collect the taxes, raise the armies, or drag people to their executions, as my predecessors did. As you can imagine, this made them very unpopular. If you think of the Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood, it is the same role. They were also very powerful, which is why the king, because it always was a king back then, only asked his high sheriffs or shire reeves to hold the office for 1 year, and that still remains the case to this day. In days gone by, my predecessors would have ridden out to the boundary of the county to meet any visiting judges and ensure their safety, which is why I still have a sword. It represents defending law and order. So as High Sheriff, I remain His Majesty's representative for law and order in the county, working with the judiciary, prisons, probation, the voluntary sector and the emergency services. It's still the case that it's my job to ensure the comfort and entertainment of any visiting High Court judges, and all at my own expense, may I add. We receive no remuneration or expenses for this role whatsoever. So although largely ceremonial now, I still have a number of responsibilities, including being the returning officer in the county during a parliamentary election. So you often see the acting returning officer doing a declaration. Well, this is because it's impossible for the High Sheriff to do them all. However, on July the 4th, I will have a very late night in Maidenhead, as that is the constituency in which I live, so that's the one I am going to do. So the role of High Sheriff is a non-political, voluntary one, and we typically complete between 300 to 400 engagements in a year, including police awards and ceremonies, firefighter graduations, citizenship ceremonies, visits to charities, visits to prisons, including Broadmoor, visits to the police, fire and South Central Ambulance Service HQ. And we actually go out with the police, not dressed like this, obviously, but we actually go out with the police and we sit with the judges in various courts, including the Magistrates, Crown, County, Tribunal and Coroners' Courts. So our job is to support and thank those who often don't receive thanks. This is everyone from judges to frontline workers who quietly go about their work without much praise or acknowledgement. So I hope, at least to some, that when the High Sheriff of the county says thank you, it goes some way to feeling valued. So I'm often asked, how did you become High Sheriff? Well, you don't apply to be High Sheriff, you are asked. In fact, it's more of a command. I accepted the invitation for a few reasons. I am not the traditional High Sheriff of years gone by. I don't have a country estate, and I wasn't even born in Berkshire. I was born in Oxford, but soon arrived in the county, being fostered in Maidenhead and then adopted in Wokingham. Now, I found my forever family in Wokingham, so perhaps you can understand why this great town means so much to me. I went to the Embrook School down the road, leaving at the age of 17, not going to university. So I started working full-time, stacking shelves here in Waitrose. I went on to work my way up in various jobs and spent many hours volunteering my time, which is how I got to this point. So I accepted the role to help break the mould. The theme for my Shrivel year is opportunities for young people. Someone's background should never be a barrier to them reaching their potential. I have a particular interest in those in the care system and those leaving care, which can be a vulnerable, traumatic, and defining moment in their life. So we are all here for the same reason, to do the best we can for our community. So if any of you believe I can help you or organisations you support, then please do get in touch. Thank you very much to Beth for inviting me here today to explain a little bit about what a High Sheriff does. And I hope that helps to explain why sometimes you see a man around in tights and a sword. I actually have about 16 borough and town mayors I work with across the county. However, Beth has always been the friendly and welcoming face at various events. In fact, you even got me up dancing at one event, which is extremely rare. So I congratulate you on a successful mayoral year, and I wish all the best to the new mayor. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Alex. And I think we've all learned a lot from what you said. And the thing that I took from what I've known about you over the years, and that I talked to the foster parents about on Friday, was that you were a looked after and then adopted child. And that proves to me that there aren't any boundaries. If you're looked after, and we have foster parents in this room, and I think they take that back with them, that whatever they're doing, that is a magnificent job for our looked after children. Thank you, Alex. We now go on to item 1 on the agenda. I have some presents for the staff that have supported me through my mayoral year. And so before I go on to the next item, would you bear with me for a moment? They're hidden away somewhere, Madeline. And I'd just like to give them to the officers that have supported me through the year and wish them all the best. I'm sure Adrian will be a lot easier if he's mayor. Susan.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. Thanks.
You may be wondering what these are doing here. I know my consort like a tipple or two, especially several of them. So I will give them to the consorts afterwards. Here, I have this Felix in your department. Please enroll them on me. Caroline, I'd like to embarrass you. Quickly. Caroline, with all my foibles, my forgetfulness, my silly sense of humour. Thank you so much to you and the others that have helped with me this year. Now let's go on to item 1 on the agenda. I'd like to invite nominations for the office of Mayor for the municipal year 2024-2025.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Adrian Mather, please.
Thank you, Mark. Do you have a seconder?
We do.
I'm more than happy to second Adrian's nomination as the mayor.
Thank you. Do the proposer and seconder wish to make a short speech in support of their nomination?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It gives me enormous pleasure to propose my fellow Evernons ward councillor, Adrian Mather, to be your successor as mayor for our wonderful borough. I've witnessed Councillor Adrian's dedication to our borough over many years, and as a newly elected member, I really look forward to working with him, with Councillor Lou Tomlin and our Liberal Democrat team on behalf of all the residents in Everdens ward and beyond. Adrian is a champion of equal opportunity, especially in enabling everyone to have access to a healthy lifestyle. He is currently chairman of the Health Overview and Scrutiny Board and a governor of Royal Berkshire Hospital. He believes in partnership, especially with local charities, in the delivery of support services when our residents are struggling. If elected, he's chosen First Days as his mayoral charity, and they provide essential items for children living with low income or financial hardship. Adrian's dedication and application to the deputy mayor's role has been there for all to see. And stepping up, Councillor Adrian will become the perfect chairman to keep order in what we all hope will be an extremely dynamic council this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to nominate Alison Swaddle for the post of Mayor. Alison's had a long and distinguished career in the Borough Council. She's been chairman of many of the scrutiny committees. She's got a very good understanding of the Constitution, and she's also very active in the community, including running beavers and all sorts of other things in her spare time. I think she'd make an excellent mayor. She is very well known in the area, and I'd like to nominate her.
Okay, thank you. So as we have nominations, what will happen is we'll take the nominees in alphabetical order, and you will need to vote according to the nominee that you support, and then a declaration will be made. So in accordance with the alphabetical order, so can you vote now, or if you support Councillor Adrian Mather, please? Thank you. And can you vote now if you support Councillor Alison Swaddle? Thank you. So we have concluded the vote, and I declare that Councillor Adrian Mather is elected as Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council for the municipal year 2024-25.
We're going to adjourn the
Oh, sorry.
You'd like to?
I need to do the signing first. Just hold on a second. So I
Sign.
Want
Full
to-
name there.
full name. Sign here. Do I need to date it or 23rd May 2024? I read this. Okay. Right. So I, Adrian Mather, having been elected to the office of Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I have written a short speech as a short thank you to this. Just let me start my computer again. Dear members, I'm really honestly very humbled by your request for me to be Mayor of Wokingham Borough for this coming year. I'm so pleased to be given this opportunity. But I must talk about Beth. The outgoing Mayor, Beth, has performed the role of Mayor of this borough absolutely excellently. And I've had so much fun with her. It's been an absolute pleasure being the Deputy Mayor with Beth as Mayor. She has a very strong work ethic, which I've seen on many occasions, but also she's brought tremendous wit and enthusiasm to the role of being Mayor. And on behalf of all the residents, I would like to say a huge thank you, Beth. In addition, I would like to thank all the non-returning councillors for their many years of service to this council. At this year's local election, there was all 54 wards were contested, and we have an amazing 27 new councillors in the chamber tonight. I would like to add an additional welcome to you all the new councillors especially. I hope we can all work together over the coming year for the benefit of the residents and our local communities in absolutely the right way. I'm sure we can do that. Thank you. Right, I need to put a badge on a console. Have we got the badge? Yeah. Sorry, and I need to make a presentation to the outgoing Mayor, Beth. the outgoing mayor's consort as well. Sorry, can you remind me of the name?
Carol.
Carol. Oh, Carol and Carol, come over here, please. There should be two. Carol. Oh, there we go. Right, we're back on the script now. I would like now to invite nominations for the office of Deputy Mayor for the municipal year 24-25. Yes, please, Beth.
I've not got over not speaking yet. I'd like to nominate Councillor Carol Jewell. Carol and I have worked together in politics since Moses was a lad. Not our Moses, but the original one. So we've worked together such a long time. We've always worked very closely together. And I've seen Carol do lots and lots of work for residents in our area. She is extremely well organised. She's extremely patient, and she gets on and does a job. And I think that's the right sort of thing for a councillor in this borough. And so I heartily recommend Carol to be our Deputy Mayor for the next municipal year. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Beth. Is there a seconder? Prue Bray.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. Sorry, I can't stand up. I've known Carol for almost as long as Beth, not quite as long. Those of you who are new to the council will perhaps not know that Carol has been a councillor previously and served this borough well in the past. And I look forward to her taking up this role as Deputy Mayor for the future. I'm sure she will do it diligently and well. Knowing her, she will be an excellent Deputy Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Pauline?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And congratulations. I should be the first person to congratulate you. I'd like to nominate Shahid Yunus as the post of Deputy Mayor. Shahid's, again, another long-standing councillor with a great reputation in the area. And I would sure he would do a fantastic job as Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Pauline. I will hand over to Susan now.
Do you have a seconder?
Sorry, seconder. Charles.
Thank you. So as before, because we have two nominees, I will say the nominee's name, and then if you can vote for the nominee that you support, please. So I will take those in alphabetical order. So please can you show your support for Councillor Carol Jewell? Thank you. And please can you show your support for Councillor Shahid Yunus? Thank you. We have concluded the votes, and I declare that Councillor Carol Jewell be elected as Deputy Mayor of Wokingham Borough Council for the municipal year 2024-25.
Councillor Jewell, please could you join me at the dais?
I, Carol Jewell, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor, Woking Borough Council, declare that I take the office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
The next item is sorry. Oh, here we are. Sorry, apologies. I would like to invite the Deputy Mayor's consort to join me at the dais to receive the badge of office. Okay, coming over here, back. So I believe Councillor Conway wants to speak now.
Thank you very much. I didn't speak after made her remarks, but I'm quite happy to speak now. First of all, I want to congratulate you, Mr. Mayor, and I also want to congratulate Carol as the Deputy Mayor. It's excellent to see you both sitting up there on the top table. But I also wanted to thank someone else who's in the council chamber this evening. This is the last council meeting that Phil Crichton will be attending. Phil, as most of you know, is the editor of Wokingham Today. He's leaving to take up new opportunities elsewhere. and I want to thank him, I hope on behalf of all councillors, for his service to our community. Local papers, Mr. Mayor, play a key role in sustaining local democracy, and none more so than Wokingham Today, which carries extensive coverage of the council on its pages. Now, sometimes administrations find the reports uncomfortable reading, and I certainly have, in the course of this last year, occasionally found them uncomfortable reading. But I've always taken the view that we all, as councillors, benefit from the attention the local press gives us, even if we don't sometimes like that attention. Because if people lose interest in the council, and if they stop voting in local elections, national governments of whatever complexion will feel justified in centralising more power in their own hands. So thank you, Phil, for your sterling efforts to make sure that people out there in our community understand what the council's doing. Thank you for your service to local democracy. I'm sure all councillors will want to join me in wishing you good fortune in all your future endeavours. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Now, Carol, please.
I'm going to stand up because I think at the moment the microphone's taller than me, and spend the rest of the meeting trying to get this seat to go up. But anyway, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for supporting my election as Deputy Mayor. I'm very honoured. As was said, this is a return to this chamber, having left it some years ago, thinking I would never come back. But I'm here now, and very pleased to be so. I have been, as you've heard, consort to the outgoing Mayor, Beth Rowland, and that has been an amazing opportunity and experience, and in fact has given me a good grounding, if you like, for what my year as Deputy Mayor will be like. I'm always amazed at the number of organisations out in the borough and the number of people that give up so much time so willingly just to help people get on better in life. The children, when visited schools, etc. That's been just amazing, and always, I just think we've got a lot to look forward to if these children, as young adults, coming into our borough. So hopefully, thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. May I sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of March 2024 as a correct record? Please can I have a show of hands, those for? Is that long enough? Yeah. Those against? Abstains? Quite a number of abstentions. As there is a majority, the minutes are agreed. Thank you. The next item is apologies. Are there any apologies for absence?
We have one apology, Councillor Norman Jorgensen.
Thank you, Susan. Any other apologies? No. Declarations of interest. Does anyone wish to declare an interest in any item on the agenda? Stephen, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to declare an interest in agenda item 14, appendix 3, appointments to outside bodies, where I'm nominated to be representative on the Berkshire Pension Fund Advisory Panel, as my wife is a current member of the scheme. I have taken advice in this matter, and I'm advised that provided I declare this interest, there are no barriers to me taking up this appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. No further declarations of interest. Then we move on to item 6, Returning Officers Report on the May 2024 elections. I understand Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubey is proposing this report. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, Stephen.
Yes, thank you. Hopefully you've all read the report. So this is one of the biggest elections that we have done for a while in Woking Borough, as it was the first time in 20 years we had elections in every seat. And on top of that, we had the police crime commissioner elections as well. For the borough elections alone, there were 173 candidates, and on the day there were 64 polling stations to look after, with over 750 casual employees that were needed to make this election happen. As you can imagine, the complexity of managing all of this took quite a lot of coordination and effort. We can only thank those who were involved, in both the officers who may have been working on this for many months and the other staff who may have just been involved for a few critical days. Collectively, they were able to deliver a smooth and unquestionable election result. And now they have to do something similar all over again in 6 weeks' time for the general election. Either way, I think we very much need to thank all of those included, including Andrew Moulton, who wrote this report, for leading the election smoothly and fairly and ensuring that our precious democracy, a thing that we value dearly in this country, is supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Imogen. Does any member wish to speak against this report? We now move to a vote on this item. All those in favour of the recommendations as set out in the report on page 41, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Against? Abstentions? Thank you. The next, yes, that is carried. Thank you. The next item is Mayor's announcements. There's a general election coming up. That was a surprise, wasn't it? I'm very, very pleased to introduce Emma Cantrell, who is going to speak about her charity First Days. I met Emma a few years ago, and she introduced me to this concept, which I think is an amazing concept, of supporting the families that need support. Over to you, Emma, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for choosing First Days as your charity this year. You'll be pleased to know that First Days history just goes back to 2013, so I won't talk quite as long as my friend Alex over there did. I'd like to invite you to imagine a childhood where a warm blanket is a luxury and where a full stomach is a privilege. Imagine a classroom where you don't have the tools you need to learn and to dream, and you are just surviving. So many families in our borough are thankfully not in that situation. Sadly, there are more than 4,000 children who live below the poverty line here in Wokingham Borough, and for those children, that image I described at the beginning, and sometimes much worse, is their reality. At First Days, we are determined to change the story for those children. We are the anti-poverty charity in Wokingham where compassion meets action. We don't believe that you can have one without the other. That doesn't make meaningful work in our community. We start by providing the essentials to children, everything they need to feel safe, to feel confident and to feel ready to thrive in their childhoods. That might be a warm bed to sleep in at night. It might be nutritious food, and it's certainly school supplies and school uniforms that open the doors to opportunity for children to thrive in their education. Our work doesn't stop there. We also believe in empowering families not just supporting the children involved. We have a dedicated team of family support workers and coaches who walk alongside parents, restoring the dignity and the confidence that has been knocked out of them by living really, really difficult lives. And we equip them with the tools they need to navigate really difficult challenges and build a brighter future, not just for their children, but for them as well, as residents here in Wokingham. We would love to live in a society where charities like ours don't exist. We long for the day that we can close our doors for good. But until then, with the support of partners like Woking Borough Council, who we absolutely love working with, we can rewrite that story for children in this borough and all those families in our individual communities. I'd like to invite every single one of you who would like to have more information about the families in your borough and those low-income families and the sort of situations they're in. My door is always, always open to share our experiences and the work we do. And it is my absolute passion subject of how we can support families to change those lives. So thank you so much. I'm really, really looking forward to working with the Mayor in the year ahead and sharing a lot more and doing a lot more for those families. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma, and thank you for all the amazing work your team does. I now invite Councillor Stephen Conway, Leader of the Council, to inform the Council of the composition and areas of responsibility of the Executive, a copy of which has been tabled. Stephen and any executive members who may wish to speak have 10 minutes.
I don't think any other executive member is going to speak, Mr. Mayor, so I'm afraid I will be hogging most of that time, although not quite all of it. After yesterday's announcement of a general election on the 4th of July, I expect many councillors' minds will be elsewhere. One of our number, the Leader of the Opposition, is herself a candidate. And two former colleagues who recently stood down as councillors will also be campaigning to become MPs. Clive Jones in Wokingham and Tahir Mahir in Woodley and Earley. Even so, I hope, perhaps a vain hope, we can refrain from firing the opening shots of the general election in the chamber this evening and focus instead on the council and our responsibilities as councillors. The council's executive is smaller this year than last. Executive responsibilities have been redrawn in some cases, as you can see from the paper before you. There is considerable continuity in personnel. Rachel Bishop-Firth, Prue Bray, Paul Fishwick, David Hare and Imogen Shepherd-Dubay remain in post. The most significant change is that two new colleagues are joining the executive. Mark Ashwell as Executive Member for Economic Development, Sport, Leisure and the Arts, and Jordan Montgomery as Executive Member for Environment and Climate Emergency. I'm delighted to have them on board, and I know that they will make a major contribution. I should also explain that as Lindsay Ferris stood down at the election, I decided that it would be unfair to ask somebody to take on the planning executive role when we hope to bring the new local plan to council for approval as soon as July. I have therefore added planning to my own portfolio, at least for this year. I want to take this opportunity to thank council officers at all levels of the organisation for their hard work and commitment. We councillors owe them a great debt of gratitude. They're one of the council's greatest assets. I hope all councillors will always, in their language and in their actions, respect officers' professional judgment, even when they dissent from it. We've just been through a hard-fought and tense local election campaign. While my preference, and I think that of most voters, is for a positive approach, there is no denying that elections usually involve pointed attacks on opponents and generate discord rather than harmony. My appeal to the opposition is that we put the local elections behind us and try, after the 4th of July, if not before, to work together for the better Wokingham that we all want. I know from personal experience over many years that opposition can be deeply frustrating. But opposition can play an important role, a noble role, especially if opposition councillors are willing to engage with the ruling group positively, responsibly, and constructively. The council lost some very dedicated councillors of all parties in these recent elections, but it also gained many new councillors, 27 of them, in fact, who will bring a fresh perspective and new ideas, and I welcome that very much. As leader of council, I will do all I can to create conditions in which councillors of all parties can play a meaningful part in policy making. I want to call on all the experience and all the talent available to help us make the best decisions for the benefit of the people and the businesses of the borough. I hope that the council's overview and scrutiny committees can build upon the successes of last year, when they played an important role in changing policies proposed to the executive. Early involvement of the overview and scrutiny committees was the key to their playing a constructive part, and I hope to see more of that in this coming year. I will try, as I did in the last municipal year, to work collaboratively with councillors of other parties. In that spirit, I have offered chairs and vice chairs of various council committees to the Labour and Conservative groups. I've also sought to establish a new principle in the allocation of outside bodies representation. In the past, this has nearly always been on a winner-takes-all basis. I want to allocate places on outside bodies in a fairer way. When an outside body is associated with a specific geographical area that is represented on the council by one party only, then that party should have the right to nominate the council representative. My own priorities are ones that I hope councillors of all parties can sign up to. First, sound council finances, without which the council can do nothing positive in the years to come. There will be more work to reduce future budgetary pressures through prevention, early intervention, and invest to save measures, such as increasing in-borough provision for special educational needs, which will cut our future home to school transport costs. We'll also be pursuing new ways to generate extra income, such as our own solar farms. The new one in Barkham, when fully operational, will produce nearly £3 million of revenue a year to use on services for residents and businesses. Second, focusing help on those who need it most, such as the frail elderly, adults with learning difficulties, and children with disabilities, as well as those experiencing acute hardship. And third, working with others in the voluntary and charitable sector, faith groups, business, education, healthcare, and the Youth Council, and different local authorities to pool knowledge, experience, and resources to tackle the challenges we face together. To give just one example, we hope to call on the Henley Business School and the new Berkshire Prosperity Board to help us to formulate a town centre strategy. The days when the council could do it all on its own have gone. constrained finances are encouraging us to do what I have always felt we should do anyway: embrace the opportunities that working with others can bring. My vision is of a greener and more prosperous Wokingham, where everyone, whoever they are, can play their part. Just as we need to tap the talents, all of the talents in this council chamber, so we need to tap all of the talents in our community. I will work with anyone who shares this vision. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Stephen. I would now like to invite the Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Pauline Jorgensen, to speak. Pauline, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our last council meeting, we said goodbye to a number of councillors standing down. I would like to add to that my thanks to some of the councillors of all parties who worked really hard and lost their seats in the elections for various reasons. The electorate is an interesting beast, and you can never guarantee the result of an election. So I would like to thank all the hardworking, experienced councillors that we've lost in the last election. I'd also like to have to say I've got the happier task of welcoming new councillors. In the Conservative group, I want to welcome Joseph, George, Yusra, Moses, Rohit, Kay, Vishal, Dave, and Shona. Well done in your elections, and I look forward to working with you. I'd also like to thank Beth, the previous mayor, for her service. I really clearly remember her having her head shaved in Woodley Precinct not long after she became mayor. I think she's done a very good job in the community, and I'd like to thank her for her service and her efforts. And finally, I'd like to thank the High Sheriff for a fascinating speech. I've learnt far more about High Sheriffs than I ever thought I would hear. And of course, Emma Cantrell, who does a fantastic job with First Days, and I'd really encourage all the councillors to take her up on her offer. I've been to speak to her, I've tried to help, and I think it's a really great charity. I'd really encourage people to go along and see what they do. Despite the new ward boundaries, the Conservative group remains by far the second largest in the council. Across the borough, our vote share went up last year. And for the third time, Woking Borough voters have declared a council with no overall control, despite much anticipated predictions that the Liberal Democrat administration would gain a majority. Indeed, we understand that Ed Davey had to relocate his last-minute election rally away from Woking when it became clear the Liberal Democrats would not win a majority. Over the last 2 years, the Conservative group has voiced its concern about the administration's policies. We've called for action stopping unsustainable development and for the Liberal Democrats to publish their draft local plan. We've opposed the introduction of fortnightly bin collections and have successfully reversed the reduction of emptying public bins. We've called for greater investment in road repairs and have repeatedly represented the views of residents who oppose the punishing hikes in parking charges. And this was reflected in the outcome of the election. In Early, where residents were concerned about fortnightly bin collections and the state of the roads, we gained 2 seats. In Woodley, where residents were most concerned with the cost of parking and the state of the roads. In Barker and Marlfield, local people were concerned about the lack of action on development and reacted angrily to the Liberal Democrat and Labour's cynical decision to not publish the draft local plan until after residents had voted. Residents there and in Early do not want the development of Hall Farm, and we've been clear we will oppose it. In Finchamstead, residents told us they were worried about development as well, but they were also outraged about the incompetence of the removal of local litter bins last summer, and also, for that matter, about California Crossroads. The Liberal Democrats have previously insisted that bins were collected weekly under their new policy, when they knew full well that council household waste and non-food recycling, which most people class as bins, will not be taken away every week, and residents know this too. We won all 3 seats in Finchamstead. The Liberal Democrat administration and the Labour group, whose councillors provide them with a working majority, need to recognise they must change direction. I believe the borough needs a majority Conservative administration, but while the Liberal Democrats remain in power, it's our duty as Conservatives to try and push the administration on the right course that delivers for residents. We will continue to offer robust scrutiny as residents do. Over the last 2 years, the reaction of Liberal Democrats to questioning, challenging and representation of residents concerned has been confected outrage, deflection, and attempts to reduce questions. They tried to remove 150 litter bins without consultation and then claimed no decision had been made. Petitions from residents have been ignored or branded as spurious. Legitimate criticism has been called fake news, and in July 22 they admitted they want to be able to control the debate. Even when this council voted to overturn fortnightly bin collections, the executive simply dismissed it and ploughed on anyway. As a responsible opposition, we also believe in providing support and working together where we agree. This council needs to continue pressing for housing numbers that are sustainable for Wokingham Borough. We had success when we were in power reducing the housing targets, and we will support future efforts. Even though my offer was ignored by the previous leader, I'm sure Councillor Conway may have a different approach. We're deeply concerned about Keir Starmer's proposals to roll back protection on the green belt, effectively overriding local planning decisions and what that may mean for Wokingham. Residents are the best judge of what housing is needed in their area, not ministers and officials of any persuasion in Whitehall. I'm also happy that a Conservative member will become Vice Chair for Licensing and Appeals Committee. The Conservatives believe in putting residents at the heart of council policies. What we want and the local people want are strong finances, action on planning, working with communities, and ensuring people are free to choose, not forced to meet ideological whims of politicians. We will continue to fight for this in opposition, building on our work in the last 2 years of being the voice of residents on the council. And we'll continue to put forward a positive plan for making Wokingham an even better place for residents, local businesses, and future generations.
Thank you, Pauline. Sorry, could you do your mic?
Yeah.
Thanks. We now move on to public question time. I would like to remind executive members that responses to questions must be no longer than 2 minutes, and these will be timed. I would also ask members of the public to remember that any supplementary question has to be about the topic, and it has to be a question. I would like to invite Andrew Mickleborough to ask his question of the Executive Member for Children's Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, my question is to the Executive Member for Children's Services, Prue Bray. Individuals and families move to and leave our borough to settle elsewhere for many reasons. They are also very heterogeneous. For instance, some may have moved to or from another local authority. Others have moved from or to a different country. Many are children, some of whom have special education needs or disabilities. SEND. Some new arrivals may already have an education and health care plan from their previous local authority. Those from abroad sometimes have a close equivalent, fully recognised by their previous country of origin. What processes are in place to ensure that families and children in both of the above categories who are now residents of our borough can access uninterrupted SEND support that they had been assessed as necessary in their previous place of residence?
Thank you for your question. Apologies for not being able to stand up due to my hip. We are proud that Wokingham Borough is regarded as a great place to live and learn, and this draws families to live here. When a child arrives in Wokingham and is known to us, the local authority's school admissions team follow the National School Admissions Code and allocate school places quickly and fairly. If a pupil moves out of the borough, officers from Wokingham will notify and liaise with the other local authority where a child moves into to make sure the school place and needs of the child concerned is known to and followed up by them. With regard to pupils with an EHC plan, there is a statutory process that both the former, the old local authority, and Wokingham Borough have to act on, which is acted on by the SEND team. And it's articulated most clearly in the SEND Code of Practice in January 2015. And under that guidance, where a child or young person with an EHC plan moves into Wokingham Borough, the old local authority must transfer the plan to us, either on the day of the move or within 15 working days of when the family notified them of the move. The plan's received by the SEND team, and we begin a process of either reviewing the plan or completing a new plan, a new EHC needs assessment. And on that's a rare occasion, and in discussion with families, if the child has moved in, has an EHC plan that has not been updated for several years. Conversely, the same rule and practice apply when a child with an EHC plan moves from Woking Borough to another UK local authority area. For those children with SEND who arrive in Woking from abroad, there will be a period of time whilst their needs are assessed prior to the EHC plan being agreed. And in practice, that means that such pupils will typically enter the education system by the mainstream admissions process. All Wokingham maintained schools prospective pupils with exceptional medical and or social needs within their admissions policy and have an associated focus on providing an inclusive and stimulating environment for all learners. So the first step into the education system provides pupils with access to education as a potential transition point onto more specialised provision. Additionally, in exceptional circumstances where a child has evident and substantial special educational needs,
Can you start to wrap up, please?
I've got about 15 words. They will put in place a holistic package of support to ensure their needs are fully catered for while the HCP process is ongoing.
Andrew, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I did have a supplementary question, but Prue's answer has been so comprehensive and helpful that I think actually it's covered the points that I wish to elaborate. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. The next question is from Mike Smith, but I don't see Mike Smith in the chamber. Are you going to ask the question on his behalf, Stephen? Over to Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been asked by my ward resident, Mike Smith, to bring his question, which is to the leader of the council. In a lot of recent social, press and election media, various suggestions were made that Wokingham Borough Council could carry out, like rolling back of car park charge increases, continuing with weekly bin collections, and spending a great deal more on road repairs. Please, could you tell my resident, Mike, if any of these suggestions are deliverable and affordable?
Thank you, Stephen. And if you could pass on to Mike my thanks for his asking the question. I had intended to give a rather conciliatory answer to this question. However, having heard Pauline's speech earlier, which started so well, but rather rapidly went downhill, I think I have to give a perhaps rather different answer. So, no, I don't believe that the pledges made by the opposition in the recent elections were either deliverable or affordable. But I suspect they were never intended to be delivered or afforded, as I don't think the opposition ever believed they'd be in a position where they had to honour those pledges. And so it transpired. Despite Pauline's valiant efforts to make defeat look like victory, the Conservatives fell back to 19 seats on the council, their lowest number ever. They are now further from a return to power than they were when they lost in 2022 and lost again in 2023. Now, with the local elections over, and once the general election is past us, there is, I hope, an opportunity to reset the dial and for the opposition to adopt a different approach from the one Pauline showcased in her speech this evening. I hope they will take that opportunity. I would welcome, and I will do all I can to facilitate their playing a more constructive role in the council's business.
Thank you, Stephen. There's no supplementary on this. I would like to invite Tony Johnson to ask his question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During the election period, The Times published an article titled "Worst Performing Councils in England Revealed. Where does yours rank?" based on information provided by the Office of Local Government. They rated councils for finance, waste, roads, social care and planning. And Wokingham placed 34th out of England's 317 principal councils. ahead of 12 of the 14 neighbouring councils within a 20-kilometre radius. Wokingham ranked 12th for planning, 45th for social care, and 275th for roads. Would the executive member with responsibilities for roads like to make any observations as to that ranking of 275th out of 317?
Thank you, Tony, for your question. As you probably know, there are different kinds of councils providing different services. District councils do not do roads. The Times has chosen to give every authority that doesn't deliver a service the average score for that service. In the case of roads, 190 authorities appear to have been given the average score. This means that the ranking given to those authorities which do not provide roads is distorted. This is a fundamental flaw. Awarding average scores to councils who don't deliver a particular service automatically rates them higher than half the councils that do deliver those services. This portrays a very misleading picture of the state of Wokingham's roads and many others, and has been criticised by the Local Government Association. A truer picture can be obtained from the actual data. The roads data reported against covers the 2022-23 financial year and is obtained from the DFT covering road condition statistics for motorways and A roads as well as non-A roads. In November 2023, when the DFT published the latest data for Wokingham roads, we were among the best maintained. The statistics show that Wokingham Borough Council carried out maintenance on around 9% of its A roads, compared to an average of around 5% nationally. That's almost double the national average. For non-A roads, the council did maintenance work on 4.5% of its roads compared to an average of around 2.5% nationally, which is again almost double the national average. Data is available for 119 local authorities for A roads and 118 local authorities for non-A roads, putting Wokingham well into
Paul,
the top
can you summarise?
Well into the top 20 for maintenance work carried out on the council's road network. There are no other factors other than the DFT data for roads. I've got 5 more words. Contained within the Times assessment, and therefore we believe the assessment and ranking given to Wokingham roads by the Times is fundamentally flawed.
Tony, do you have a supplementary? You bet. I'm aware that the chair of the LGA slammed the messengers, the Times and Oflog, in his letter to Michael Gove, but he did acknowledge that the data should be used to ask questions. Locally, there's been civil unrest over what Wokingham has spent on One Road Junction recently, and as all of you who've campaigned will know, great dissatisfaction over what it hasn't spent. However, when this council received extra monies from central government on the 5th of February, there was no scrutiny meeting before the budget councils, so the public don't know where the new money went. And despite the complaint that the measure was unfair, my question to you all via the executive member is this: what do you, returning members, as well as new members, plan to do to improve Wokingham's miserable roads and hence its ranking? And how are you going to know you've been successful?
The government have given us £418,000 additional money from the cancellation of the HS2 project. £418,000 will resurface 0.37% of our road network. It's a drop in the ocean. The national average is declining, and it has been declining for many years. And you only have to look at the alarm survey, which comes out every year. And currently the backlog for England and Wales is £16.3 billion, up 2.1 billion in 1 year. That is down to a failure by this current government over the last decade, giving funding, the right funding, to all highway authorities across this country.
Thank you. The next item is petitions. Does anyone wish to submit a petition? Can't see any petitions. Right, now we move on to, sorry. Oh, yes. Sorry, apologies. The public can leave, and that includes Emma, if you wish to leave, Emma. Thank you very much. Right, now we move on to member question time. I would like to invite Rebecca Margetts to ask her question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is for the Executive Member for Health, Wellbeing and Adult Services. With more than 2,700 cases of whooping cough reported across England so far in 2024, more than 3 times the amount recorded in the whole of last year, what are Woking Borough Council doing to highlight the importance of vaccinations and to make sure our residents know how to access their jabs?
Thank you for your question, Rebecca. As you know, whooping cough is a contagious infection that causes a characteristic cough. It is most serious for young babies. It's a statutory notifiable disease that peaks cyclically every 3 to 5 years. Unfortunately, like many Tory election messages, there's been much misinformation and distortions about this peak in the media. The whooping cough vaccine provides high levels of protection against severe disease. Despite the increase in reported whooping cough, the number of notifications in Woking Borough has remained in the low single digits each week, accounting for approximately 1% of the cases in the South East. My wife, a local GP, has seen 1 confirmed case. The whooping cough vaccine is given as part of the routine childhood vaccination schedule delivered at primary care. There is good uptake of these vaccinations in Woking Borough, consistently above the national average target for the first dose of 95%. Sorry. It is also important for pregnant women to get vaccinated against whooping cough as they pass immunity onto their babies. The WBC Public Health Team closely monitors immunisation uptake rates in association with partners in the Health Protection and the Resilience Partnership Board. National immunisation programmes are commissioned by NHS England. The local authority public health team promotes awareness and encourages uptake of these programmes, but without frightening people. In tandem with the recent National Childhood Immunisations campaign, the WBC Public Health Team have issued communication messages to our networks, such as residents and school newsletters, as well as in customer-facing settings, such as children's centres and libraries. The Health Visiting and School Nursing Service, commissioned by the Public Health Team, also promote all childhood vaccinations as they deliver their services in the community. The Director of Public Health has written directly to all GPs in the borough to ask for their support in delivering vaccinations for those due or catching up.
Rebecca, do you have a supplementary?
I do think it's a bit of a shame that the member there had to turn it into a political question when it was genuinely a question about what we're doing, the council is doing as a borough to represent its residents and the best thing for their care. So it's a shame you had to turn it into that. David, I'm pleased to hear that you are the progress that is being made to encourage these vaccinations. And as you said, it is most important for pregnant women. How can you and will you be moving this forward and reporting back to the Health Overview and Scrutiny about how you're progressing with this if we have any further cases? Thank you.
We will certainly be reporting back as to how we're progressing and so on. And certainly it is those two important groups, the young children and the pregnant women, who we will focus on. As you might know, certainly our uptake with pregnant women is above the national average, and it's still quite low. It's still only 70%, but the national average is below 60%. So we're better, but we're not good enough. And we will go on showing and increasing this if at all possible.
I'd like to invite George Evans to ask his question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to the Executive Member for Planning and the Local Plan. My residents in Arborfield Green have been asking when they can expect to see facilities and amenities across the development, such as the sports pavilion. Some are long overdue, and they are crucial to help form the community that residents were promised. Can you please provide me with an update on what steps the Council is taking to ensure there are no more delays to delivery of the promised infrastructure?
Thank you for your question, George. It provides me with an opportunity to thank Ian Pittock, the councillor for Barkham until the recent elections, for his determined efforts to see key infrastructure for Arborfield Green brought forward. I should extend my thanks to the council officers who've worked incredibly hard with the developers to secure long-delayed community facilities. Officers have been working closely with Crest Nicholson and the other stakeholders to refine detailed proposals for the sports facilities in line with Council and Sports England requirements. Revised plans have recently completed a period of statutory consultation, and a reserved matters application will be determined in the coming weeks. Subject to planning approval, works should commence this summer, and with the new facilities available or brought into operation for the 2025-26 season. Detailed plans for the village centre at Arborfield Green, including a new Sainsbury's supermarket, were approved in October 2023 and February 2024, respectively. The district centre proposals are the product of extensive pre- and post-application engagement over a period of 18 months. Enabling works commenced earlier this year. Sainsbury's have exchanged contracts on the supermarket site, and it is anticipated the construction activities will start in the autumn in parallel with a wider village centre development. You may also be aware, George, that an Arborfield Green Community Centre working group has been formed, comprising residents, parish council representatives, borough council officers and ward members. And it has been meeting for several months to gather views on the best way in which the proposed community centre could be put into use. I hope that helps answer your question.
George, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. One key piece of infrastructure that you didn't mention there that residents in Arborfield were promised is the swimming pool. The previous Conservative administration put money in the medium-term financial plan for this, but it disappeared earlier this year. What can I tell my residents in Arborfield about this? Will they be getting their swimming pool? And if so, when?
I understand it actually disappeared from the medium-term financial plan quite some time ago, rather longer ago than you're suggesting. I will happily decide or work with you and work out the best way forward on that subject. So if you'd like to meet me at your earliest convenience and mine, we can discuss this matter.
I'd like to invite Joseph Barley to ask his question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is for the Executive Member for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. The proposed pedestrian crossing at Biggs Lane would provide greater safety for students travelling to and from school in my ward. Can you please update me if any progress has been made regarding this proposal?
Thank you, Joseph, for your question. As I'm sure you are aware, there is already a safe permanent crossing provided on Biggs Lane near Princess Marina Drive. This was provided by the developer as part of the new housing development in the area and was agreed to be sufficient to support safe access across Biggs Lane for the school and surrounding residential areas. Following planning consent being granted for the Arborfield SDL, including the primary school on Baston Road, Farley Hill School on Church Lane has been relocated to this new location. This relocated intake of children may require different infrastructure needs to what has already been delivered. The request for a new crossing received has been discussed with the former Councillor Pittock and Barkham Parish Council. The council have carried out surveys in the area which have indicated that a crossing does not currently meet the criteria for a delivery. However, as the school continues to expand its intake, will also increase, whereby assessment can be revisited in the future. It should be noted that the existing crossings exist, including control crossings near Princess Marina Drive, which provides users with a choice of crossings to use. This request has therefore been added to the list of crossings, which will be monitored as this new school expands. Should external funding become available from the Parish Council, we would support a scheme to be developed and programmed for delivery, provided that it met the criteria for a crossing.
Joseph, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Just one moment. So it's a shame to hear that this particular crossing, according to the executive member, hasn't been able to pass said criteria at this current stage. Given the information he has available, would he be able to provide a firm date as to which this crossing could potentially be in place for students?
Thank you, Joseph. Firstly, an assessment's got to be done again following the additional intake at the school. There'll be additional intake after September, so it'd be prudent to actually do a survey after that particular period. It's then got to meet the criteria for going into the construction pool. Once it gets into that pool, it then has to await funding to come forward. We have a small amount of funding to deliver a certain number of crossings per year. There's quite a long list of crossings, so it's got to wait its turn. If external funding does become available from Barkham Parish Council or anybody else, and it has met the criteria, it could then be delivered earlier.
I'd like to invite Charles Margetts to ask his question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to Councillor Bray. Can you update me on progress with the planned sixth form at Bowhunt School? Can I correct a small omission in my question? It's down to me solely, not anybody else. This is due to open in September 2025 and is being advertised on the council website, school website even.
Thank you, and apologies again, Charles, for not being able to stand up. I was at a loss to understand why you thought it was going to open in September. I think you've just clarified that, so that's really helpful. So the latest information on the website is the letter that was sent to parents last November, which says that the sixth form is likely to open to its first cohort in September 2025. So the opening date for the sixth form is something that's entirely determined by the school as an academy. So it's not something that we as a local authority can provide any guarantees on. However, it is our understanding that the school does intend to open the sixth form to its first cohort in September 2025 as per that letter. And that this has been the position for at least the last 6 months since that letter was sent.
Do you have a supplementary, Charles?
I do, thank you. And thank you for that, which is welcome. My question, my supplementary, was actually regarding the 30 year 7 places which are part of this deal.
Now, I was told by someone at Bowhunt that WBC plans to offer those places from September this year, and that is perfectly possible as long as the formal agreement is completed between the Educational Trust and WBC. So my question was, I know how valued those places would be to people in my ward and in others in the area. My question was really that would you please push officers to make sure that formal agreement is in place and that these places can be offered in September 24 as promised.
I know that negotiations with the school have been ongoing. As usual with these things, it's not all been plain sailing, but progress has been made, and I am very unwilling to promise something that is not entirely within my control, but I can promise you best endeavours to do that. Yes.
I'd like to invite Moses to ask his question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question was to the executive member for the Environment, Sports and Leisure, but it appears the portfolio has been restructured, but I think the question is still relevant to the environment. In January, The Guardian reported a 115% increase in people seeking professional help in dealing with rat infestations. Just last week, there were articles in the Reading Chronicle and the Maidenhead Advertiser about problems with rats in those areas. The article in the Maidenhead Advertiser said, and I quote, "The Royal Borough is unsure where responsibility lies for tackling rat problems on land it is responsible for. Can the executive member tell me what plans and procedures the council has in place to deal with rodent infestations in areas the council is responsible for, such as car parks, and council-owned properties?"
Thank you kindly for your question, Moses. The council will advise residents to consult the British Pest Control Association, the BCPA, website for advice and details of local contractors that will undertake pest treatment services. If the resident believes the rodent infestation is coming from a neighbouring property and discussions with the neighbour have not resolved the matter, they can report it to either Environmental Health or to the Wokingham ASB team. In the first instance, the ASB team will send out an information sheet to the householders to control waste materials and undergrowth to reduce rodent activity. If a site visit is required, this will be arranged by the ASB team, who will visit the location and offer advice on how residents can prevent rats and monitor for improvements. As an indication of service demand, there was 1,491 inquiries for the 9 months of the previous financial year. The final quarter figures will be provided shortly, of which all were responded to or advised on or signposting provided, noting some of the inquiries could be multiple inquiries. Each case is looked at on an individual basis, and the council officers will work with residents and landowners to alleviate the problem. However, in the case of if the case is severe or the property owner takes no action, then the council can serve a notice on the resident under the Prevention of Damages to Pests Act 1949 and undertake works in default. Council-owned open green spaces. If rat infestation is reported on these sites, they will be visited, and if necessary, any foliage or harbourage will be cut back, and the Grinds maintenance team will be cut back. The Grinds maintenance team do not bait open spaces, and the same process is applied on council-owned car parks. Tenants would have to discuss pest problems directly with their landlord, and again, we can provide assistance if required.
Moses, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. The executive member seems to be shifting the responsibility to residents. My supplementary question is this. The same Guardian article said that councils reducing bin collections across the UK meant rats are thriving. In January, the newspaper reported that councils reducing the frequency of bin collections is fueling rat infestations. Natalie Bonge, technical manager at the British Pest Control Association, said, "Any move to reduce the frequency of collections is good news for pests and could spell big problems for householders. So, did the council consider the impact on pests and vermin when the decision was made to move to fortnightly waste collections?
Thank you kindly for your supplementary, Moses. Yes, this was considered by officers and was also discussed within the relevant scrutiny groups during the development of the new policy. What is believed by officers and believed by ourselves is that the move to the 2 weekly collections, in accordance with the new wheelie bins, will improve the situation with pests. Having strong, impermeable wheelie bins that is not susceptible to foxes and rats ripping open current blue bags, which we all know is a recurring issue, will help reduce the number of pests that take advantage of these very easily chewable bags that are currently in place.
The next item is political balance of the council and allocation and appointment to seats on committees and boards. I understand that Stephen is proposing this report. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm very happy to propose the report and the recommendations that are on pages.
Sorry, I need a seconder first. Thank you, Prue.
I'm very happy to propose the report. I was going to say the pages, but of course I realised there aren't any page numbers in this bit of the report. You can see them arraigned there, the 7 recommendations, and I am proposing those recommendations.
Thank you, Stephen. Does any member wish to speak against the report? In that case, then we move to a vote on this item. All of those in favour of the recommendations set out on page 47 and the tabled appendix 1, please raise your hands. Thank you. Abstentions? Against? That's nobody. Thank you. The recommendations are carried. The next item is appointment to joint committees, panels, working groups and other bodies. I understand again that, Stephen, you're proposing this report. Is that correct?
It is, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, Prue. Would you like to speak to this report?
I think all I need to do is draw councillors' attention to the recommendation under this item, which there are 2 recommendations, which I move.
Thank you, Stephen. Does any member wish to speak against this report? No. Sorry, Prue.
I can't stand up, so I can't make a point. But I think there are contested nominations on here, and we're going to have to vote on them individually, aren't we? Yes.
Thank you, Prue. How do we handle this? We'll call on. Okay, sorry. My intention is to seek agreement for all of the appointments en bloc and only ask for a separate vote where there is more than one nomination, as highlighted. I will call on the Chief Executive to take the separate votes first, where we will have more than one nominee.
Thank you. So in terms of the process where we have more than one nominee, I will read out the names in alphabetical order, and if you can please indicate your vote on whichever nominee you support, and then I will say who the successful appointee is. So if I start with the first, which is the adoption panel, which requires 1 member. And can I ask if you support Councillor David Hare? Can you please say? If you support Councillor Rebecca Moggetts? and Councillor David Hare is appointed. The next is Berkshire Local Transport Body, which requires one member, which we have, and it requires one substitute. So we've got two names, and the first, if you support Councillor Adrian Betteridge, please can you show? If you support Councillor Peter Harper, please show. And Councillor Adrian Betteridge is appointed. I move now on to the Community Safety Partnership, which requires two members. So moving in alphabetical order, if you support Councillor Rohit Alwat, please can you show your support? If you support Councillor Pauline Jorgensen, please show your support. If you support Councillor Jordan Montgomery, please show your support. So in terms of the two members, firstly, you've appointed Jordan Montgomery. We have a tie between Councillor Rohit Alwat and Councillor Pauline Jorgensen. And Mr. Mayor, you have the casting vote.
Bearing in mind Pauline might be busy, Rohit.
Okay, thank you. So if I move now to the next, which is the fostering panel, and we require one member, and if you support Councillor Kay Gilder, please show your support. If you support Councillor David Hare, please show your support. And Councillor David Hare is appointed. We move on to the Highwood Management Conference, which requires two members, and in alphabetical order, if you support Councillor Carol Jewell, please show your support. If your support is for Councillor Alison Swaddle, please show. If your support is for Councillor Shahid Yunus, please show. Swaddle on Yunus. Okay, so Councillor Carol Jewell is appointed, and then we have a tie break between Councillor Alison Swaddle and Councillor Shahid Yunus. So, Mr. Mayor, you have the casting vote.
I will vote for Shahid Yunus.
So if we move to Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire and Berkshire West, Bob, we need two members. So in alphabetical order, if you support Councillor Pauline Jorgensen, please show. If you support Councillor Rebecca Margetts, please show. And if you support Councillor Adrian Mather, please show. Okay, thank you. So in terms of who's appointed, we have Councillor Adrian Mather and Councillor Rebecca Margetts. We move on to the schools forum. We need one member. So if you support Councillor Catherine Glover, please vote. Thank you. If you support Councillor Moses Ayengunga-Bena, please show. And Councillor Glover is appointed. If we move on to secure accommodation panel, we require one member. And if you support Councillor Joseph Barley, please show. If you support Councillor Bray, please show. And Councillor Bray is appointed. If we move on to the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education, which requires two members. If you support Councillor Rohit Awat, please show. If you support Councillor Alex Freeney, please. If you support Councillor Jordan Montgomery, please show. So in terms of appointments, it's Councillor Jordan Montgomery and Councillor Alex Freeney. If we move on to the Thames Valley Police and Crime Panel, which requires one member and one substitute. If you support Councillor Peter Harper, please show. If you support Councillor Stephen Newton, please show. Councillor Stephen Newton is appointed. In terms of the substitute, if you support Councillor Rob Comer, please show. And if you support Councillor Pauline Jorgensen. And Councillor Rob Comer is appointed. If we move on to the Wokingham Learning and Disability Partnership Board, which requires one member. If you support Councillor David Hare, please show. And if you support Councillor Rebecca Margetts, please show. And Councillor David Hare is appointed. We move on to the remaining. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Susan. We now move to vote on the remaining nominations contained in Appendix 2. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That makes sense. Sorry, the uncontested nominations in Appendix 2, sorry. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Those recommendations are carried. Thank you. Appointments to outside bodies, pages 57 to 58, Appendix 3. I intend to agree the nominations en bloc, moving to separate votes only where there is more than one nomination, which are highlighted. I understand Councillor Stephen Conway is proposing this report. Is that correct?
It is indeed, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Prue. Stephen, would you like to speak to the report?
I don't think there's much to say other than we are going to have separate votes where there is a contested election.
Thank you, Stephen. I would like to hand over to Susan, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much. So quite a few of these are contested. So I'm going to move through them. And as before, if you can vote for the nominee that you support, and I'll announce the successful nominee. So if we start from the top, and that's Age Concern, Twyford and District, show your support for Councillor Sam Akhtar. And can you show your support for Councillor Martin Andrea? And Councillor Martin Andrea is successful. Age UK Berkshire, Councillor David Hare. And show support for Councillor Peter Harper. And show your support for Councillor Marie-Louise Wayhill. And Councillor David Hare is appointed. The next is Atomic Weapons Research Establishment Local Liaison Committee. Show your support for Councillor Adrian Betteridge. And show your support for Councillor Moses Ayangu Verbena. And show your support for Councillor Nagi Nagala, please. And Councillor Adrian Betteridge is appointed. And next is Berkshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. And show your support for Councillor Sarah Bell. Show your support for Councillor Pauline Jorgensen. And show your support for Councillor Jordan Montgomery. And Councillor Jordan Montgomery is appointed. Next, Berkshire Maestros. Show your support for Councillor Joseph Barley. And show your support for Councillor Andrew Gray. Councillor Andrew Gray is appointed. Berkshire Museum of Aviation. Show your support for Councillor Greg Bellow. And show your support for Councillor Alison Swaddle. And Councillor Greg Bellow is appointed. Berkshire Pension Fund Advisory Panel. Show your support for Councillor David Edmonds. And show your support for Councillor Stephen Newton. Councillor Stephen Newton is appointed. Citizens Advice Wokingham. Show your support for Councillor Rachel Bishop-Firth. And show your support for Councillor Rebecca Margetts. Councillor Rachel Bishop-Firth is appointed. Next is Keep Mobile. And show your support for Councillor Beth Rowland. And show your support for Councillor Wayne Smith. And show your support for Marie-Louise Wayhill. And Councillor Beth Rowland is appointed. If we move on to Ready Bus Management Committee, and show your support for Councillor Greg Bellow. And show your support for Councillor Peter Harper. And your support for Councillor Caroline Smith. And Councillor Caroline Smith is appointed. If I move on to Royal Berkshire Hospital Foundation Trust Board of Governors, show your support for Councillor Pauline Jorgensen. And show your support for Councillor Nagi Nagala. And show your support for Adrian Mather. And Councillor Adrian Mather is appointed. So I move on to Sonning and District Welfare and Educational Trust. Show your support for Councillor Sam Akhtar. And show your support for Councillor Catherine Harding. Councillor Catherine Harding is appointed. We move on to South East Employers Full Committee, which requires 2 members and 2 substitutes. So if I go with the members first, so start with Councillor Mark Ashwell. Please show your support. And Councillor Stephen Conway, please show your support. And Councillor David Edmonds, please show your support. And Councillor Stuart Munro, please show your support. And Councillors Stephen Conway and Mark Ashwell are appointed. If I move on to the substitutes, show your support for Councillor Prue Bray. And show your support for Councillor David Edmonds. And show your support for Councillor Stuart Munro. And show your support for Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Debay. And Councillors Prue Bray and Imogen Shepherd-Debay are appointed as the substitutes. If I move on to the South East Reserve Forces and Cadets Association, show your support for Councillor Adrian Betteridge. And show your support for Councillor Peter Harper. And Councillor Adrian Betteridge is appointed. We move on to Standing Conference on Archives. Show your support for Councillor Stephen Conway. And show your support for Councillor Pauline Jorgensen. And Councillor Stephen Conway is appointed. We move on to Thames Basin Heaths Joint Strategic Partnership. We show your support for Mark Brunel Walker. Show your support for Siona Turtle. And Councillor Mark Brunel Walker is appointed. If we move on to the Polehampton Charity, show your support for Councillor Stephen Conway. And show your support for Councillor Wayne Smith. Councillor Stephen Conway is appointed. We move on to White Waltham Airfield Consultative Committee. Show your support for Councillor Martin Alder. And show your support for Councillor Wayne Smith. And Councillor Martin Alder is appointed. We move on to Wokingham Borough Sports Council. Show your support for Councillor Mark Ashwell. Show your support for Councillor Kay Gilder. And show your support for Councillor Nagi Nagala. And Councillor Mark Ashwell is appointed. If we move on to the Wokingham Borough Sports Sponsorship Fund, show your support for Mark Ashwell. And show your support for Kay Gilder. And Councillor Mark Ashwell is appointed. If I move on to Wokingham Job Support Centre Management Committee, show your support for Rohit Alawat, please. and show your support for Councillor Sarah Bell. And Councillor Sarah Bell is appointed. We move to Wokingham Volunteer Centre and show your support for Councillor Rachel Burgess. And show your support for Councillor George Evans. Councillor Rachel Burgess is appointed. Moving on to Wokingham Waterside Centre. Show your support for Councillor Norman Jorgensen. And show your support for Councillor Stephen Newton. Councillor Stephen Newton is appointed. If we move on to Wokingham Youth Counselling and Information Service, show your support for Rochelle Shepherd de Bay. And show your support for Councillor Vishal Srinivasan. And Councillor Rochelle Shepherd de Bay is appointed. If we move on to Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative, we have 4 nominees and 2 members that will be appointed, and 2 substitutes and 1 substitute will be appointed. So let me start with the 2 members. In alphabetical order, show your support for Councillor Kay Gilder. Show your support for Councillor Carol Jewell. Show your support for Councillor Majid Nagara. And show your support for Councillor Alison Swaddle. And Councillors Carol Jewell and Majid Nagra are appointed. In terms of substitutes, we require 1. If I start with Councillor Alex Freeney, show your support for Councillor Alex Freeney. And show your support for Councillor Yusra Salman. So Councillor Yusra Salman is appointed. So if we move on to Woodley Volunteer Centre, Councillor Kay Gilder, show your support. And show your support for Councillor Beth Rowland. And Councillor Beth Rowland is appointed.
Thank you, Susan. We now move to a vote on all the remaining nominees. All those in favour of the nominees in Appendix 3, where only 1 nominee has been proposed, please raise your hand. Thank you. Against? Abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations are carried. Is that the end of the meeting?
Yeah.
That, amazingly, is the end of the meeting. I wish you a very good night, and please join Beth in the room for nibbles if you are available. Thank you very much, everyone.